the Resident Flyer here, hope you're well. You find me today out and about in Berkshire, just in the environs of Reading, and I'm out to test the much talked about, much praised Ducati Scrambler. So stick around, stay tuned, and I'll tell you what I think of her. So the first thing I noticed about this bike, and I've been riding it for about an hour or so, it's much more pokey than I anticipated. It's an 800cc machine, actually 803cc, and it's one of these retro style machines. So it's along the same vein of things like the Triumph Bonneville that I've recently been test riding too, so it's a good comparison. The thing though with this bike is it's got much more go. The Bonneville is a much more relaxed ride. This thing just wants to go. In fact, I find the throttle very snatchy. It's kind of at low speeds, particularly, and in low gears, it's either kind of on or off. And to start with, it felt like it wanted to kind of rip my arms off. I've got used to it a bit now, and it's fine. But it is a little bit sensitive when you start off if you're not ready for it. The other thing that immediately struck me about this bike when I first got on was just the size of it. It's very small. It's like a tiny toy bike. In fact, even some of the materials that are used, although it's very good quality build, it's got a sort of toyishness about it. It's also very small. The seat height, I think, is around 795, 800, which is about an average sort of height. But actually, it feels quite low when you jump on it. I don't know whether that's because of this particular model, and this is the Icon that I'm riding, the yellow model. And the different models of Scrambler do come with different seats, so that may vary the size slightly. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Scrambler range, but Ducati launched it earlier this year with much fanfare. There was an awful lot of hype surrounding the machine because it's basically an entry-level bike that gets you into Ducati ownership for a reasonable price. Around about £7,000 will get you one of these, depending on the model and the spec, which is pretty good. This particular one that I'm riding is the Icon, as I say, and it's been fitted with the optional Termi exhaust, and it makes it sound fantastic. So certainly no bother at all keeping up with traffic. I'm doing on the dual carriageway here, I'm doing an indicated 74 miles an hour, and no problem at all. It feels like it's got plenty more if I want it, so no problem at all with the amount of power the machine's got. It's very light and flickable as well. It's, as I say, physically a small bike, but it's very, very easy to ride in terms of its dimensions and its power. No problems there at all. So for this sort of riding, dual carriageway work, it seems the Scrambler's very good indeed. I would imagine this would make an absolutely fantastic commuter bike with its diminutive dimensions and its good power. This would get you to work in no time at all. Yeah, it's a perfect filtering machine. The big old thumpy L-twin sounds marvellous through the Termi pipes. The seating position is very, very much upright, and just now on this bit of dual carriageway with a bit of speed, I was having to hold on pretty tight and get into a fairly sort of crouched position just to stop the wind blast. So it's a lot more noticeable than on other bikes I'm familiar with riding. I quite like riding naked bikes, and I don't find wind blast is an issue, but with this one you do have to sort of hold on and crouch a bit because they're so upright. You are just like a big sail in the wind. Seat feels pretty comfy. The suspension is it's certainly not hard. It's not as hard as, say, something like my Street Triple, but it's nowhere near as soft as something like my GS, so it's kind of in the middle, so I suppose it's about right. Now, these lower speeds in town again, this is where this slightly snatchy throttle comes into its own. Whatever the opposite of coming into its own is, becomes a bit of a nuisance. It's very, very sensitive when you're in first and second gear, and you've got to be very delicate indeed. I don't know if it's just this particular bike that's is a demo bike and therefore has maybe been thrashed a bit, or whether that's a feature of these generally, but it's something to watch if you go for a test ride. Just feel if that throttle feels a bit snatchy to you. It certainly does to me. Well, that sounds kind of lumpy. The ride itself is pretty smooth, no problems with that. The handlebars are really wide, as you can probably see, and that makes for good control. So sort of adds to its Scrambler feel, I suppose. Not sure about this, it's not a dash, this dial here. They've tried to give it a sort of a mix of retro and modern, so it's round in the retro style, but obviously it's LCD. Not quite sure whether that works or not. It's certainly quite neat. It doesn't take up much room on the handlebars, but don't think I like that. I think it needs to be either one or the other. You're either building a modern or a retro, I think. This one, obviously it's a nod to the retro world by the style of the bike, but it's got a lot of modern looking features on it, so it's a bit of a mix really. Right, let's find somewhere quiet in Costco to show you the bike. Right, so here she is. This is the Ducati Scrambler, and this is the Icon model, which comes in yellow. Quite a cute little machine. Very, very small scale. As I say, the seat height is around about 795, so you can get your feet on the floor very easily indeed, not a problem. Lovely build quality. I don't know if we can pick this up on the camera particularly, but just the way the thing is put together really is nice. Obviously, if this was my machine, it would be much cleaner than this. But some of these features are very nice indeed. It feels like a quality built machine. Tidy little back end already, which makes a change. How many bikes do you have to buy these days that you immediately have to do something at the back end? Well, this one is all sorted already. And there's that termy pipe that sounds absolutely fantastic on this particular machine. So in terms of specification, she's 75 brake horsepower, as I mentioned 803cc, and I think she's putting out about 68 newton meters of torque. I'll just double check that. But as I say, it feels pretty pokey when you ride the thing. In fact, it feels much more pokey than those numbers would have you believe, possibly because of the light weight. It's 177 kilograms dry, which is obviously pretty light as bikes go. And as I mentioned, the bike comes in 4 variants depending on your want. Just really styling changes, things like the seat, the mudguards, colours, handlebars, that sort of thing. Just some styling touches. The basic bike is the same. The 4 versions are this. This is the Icon, which is the nod back to the original Ducati Scrambler, which is hence the yellow paint scheme. There's the Urban Enduro, which is the machine that's intended to be the sort of streety machine, if you like. There's the Full Throttle, which is the one that comes with the Termi can as standard. And then there's the Classic, which is the orange model, which is the full nod to the sort of retro look, with everything about it made to look a bit more, well, retro instead of the modern look. As I say, for me, it's a bit too much of a mix of retro and modern. It needs to be one or the other for me, so that's a bit of a shame. If you look at bikes, obviously similar bikes like the Triumph Bonneville, they very much, although they're modern bikes, they very much feel characterful when you ride them. You get a bit of rock and roll, and they throughout are styled to look older. And I think for me it works better on the Triumph than it does on the Ducati. But there's no doubt the Ducati is a much quicker, much nicer handling bike, more nimble, quite a bit smaller. I guess it just depends what you're in this for. Okay, enough chat, let's get back on the bike. She really does have a sort of a friendly feel, this bike. As soon as you jump on it, doesn't feel threatening at all. And just while we've got this car park available, let's just drive at a slow, low-speed handling. Do a few, pretend we've got some cones on every other one of these. See how she goes with this, what I think is a bit of a snashy throttle. Actually, the slow-speed control is absolutely fine. I think it's just a matter of getting used to it. Yeah, right down at sort of walking pace, eminently controllable. Excellent. So other than the throttle that takes a bit getting used to, which is not a problem, you can get used to it, it's a very friendly little bike. With the potential to go quite quick. You've got to be careful with it. It's a bit like my Street Triple in that respect. You know, great as even as a first big bike, but you just got to be careful if you're going to go for it, because it does have some poke. It's a simple machine really. It's got ABS, which is handy. You know, I just think ABS is a great thing for motorcycles, and I think as of 2016 all new bikes will have to have it, so it won't be anything new then. The brakes on the Scrambler are Brembo. It's got a single front Brembo disc, and even though it's only a single one, the bike's so light it's perfectly adequate. The little nod to retroiness, when I pull the brake in, you do have to put it quite a long way into the handlebars in order to stop the machine. It's not that the brakes aren't very good, the brakes are absolutely fine, it's just that you have to bring the lever in a long way. Again, I'm sure that's something you could adjust out. So in summary then, what do I reckon to the Ducati Scrambler? Well, lovely, lightweight, much more powerful than the numbers would have you believe bike. Really quite easy to ride, basic, fantastic price, about £7,000 will get you one of these. And if you're into the whole lifestyle thing, there's loads of clothing and extras and stuff that Ducati do for the bike as well, so you can really get into it and make a sort of a hobby out of it. It's comfortable, goes well, brakes are good, handlebars nice and wide. Suspension is sort of, I would say, medium, not too hard, not too soft. She corners okay, but for me, and this is where, having said all those positive things, for me, I don't think it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't have the character of, say, the Bonneville. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because I grew up at a time when I was used to seeing blokes riding Triumphs around, and for me, therefore, the Triumph wins. The Triumph is nowhere near as a refined bike. It doesn't even seem as well built in terms of quality, but there's just something about it for me that trumps this machine. This for me, as I said earlier, you're either in the retro game or you're a modern bike, and this is kind of neither one nor the other. Of course, it's a retro style with the shape of the fuel tank and so on, but the instrumentation being LCD, actually just the finish and the some of the pressings on the tank and so on are all very modern in the way it's been designed. So for me, that just doesn't work. So sorry about that, Ducati Scrambler fans, but there we go. It's just a matter of opinion. Don't flame me. Technically, I can't fault the bike. It's absolutely fantastic, and it goes like a stink. If you're only going to have one bike and you like this sort of retro look, then it's definitely worth a go. Okay, so I'm going to give it, I think, 7 out of 10 on my scale, which goes against the grain, I know. This bike was only this week voted in MCN the retro bike of the year, so it's had nothing but good press reviews. So just don't take my word for it. If you're interested, go and have a ride of one, see what you think. I think you'll be impressed on the ride quality, but these things are all down to personal choice in the end, aren't they? Anyway, there we have it. That's it for the Ducati Scrambler. Look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Missenden Flyer. Cheerio.